Welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winnick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining us on the podcast today, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. Today, I'm excited about this episode because Terry is an interesting fellow. So Terry Jones is a digital disruptor, an author, and a venture capitalist. He's founded 5 startups with $2 billion IPOs, Kayak and Travelocity, and has served on 17 corporate boards. His career path has established him as a thought leader on innovation and disruption in our increasingly digital world. So I love Kayak, and I do remember Travelocity back in the day. So,
very good.
Yeah. So welcome aboard. So you've got a lot of boxes checked in terms of entrepreneur, author, speaker, board member, all-around thought leaders. So
even a travel agent at one point.
Even a traveler. Remember, if you're under 35, Google that. They used to be people that would actually book your tickets.
You know what's funny is that people think they're gone. And this is a good lesson about how business changes. There were about 60,000 of them in the United States agencies, and half of them went away.
Sure.
You know, but half of them are still here.
That's surprising.
And of all things, my daughter ended up being a travel agent. I spent my whole career putting them out of business, and she are one, right? But
is that a form of rebellion? Is that a form of rebellion?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But she's in high-end leisure, which is still working.
Right.
And business travel, a lot of travel agents still do that. Cruises, sure. Disney. So it's surprising. We think of things obliterated by new technology, but usually it takes a very long time.
Yeah, well, it's not really obliteration because I remember early in my career you couldn't do anything without a travel agent, right? And they were retail, and they were on every corner, Liberty Travel, and all that sort of stuff. Right. That all went away thanks to you, Travelocity and Kayak, and others. But what has survived, because there are others that we use, are high-end specialty. If you want to do a safari or something exotic.
That's
like
right.
That. Right.
And so, thinking of where we are today with Corona, and I've been doing a lot of radio and talking about disruption because my new book is Disruption Off. It was 9/11. After 9/11, when the airlines were flat on their back like they are now, and they decided to take commissions to zero and not pay airlines commission anymore. And that's what made travel agents go away.
Right.
So we're going to see other businesses in this disruptive time make the kind of decisions they were always afraid to make because they have nothing to lose.
So I want to go meta with you, right? So you're the disruptor and you're the thought leader. Okay, right? Amongst other things. One of the things that we're seeing a lot of right now is, and this is, we're in the midst of COVID right now, obviously, the whole thought leader industry, if you will, keynote speaking, advising, consulting, blown up, right? Disrupted. We're talking about 2020 pretty much. If you're a keynoter, assume, don't just throw a month of your calendar away, throw the whole damn thing away. Right. And 2021 ain't going to be much better, right? That's what it is. I've even heard from very well-known authors and keynoters, the day of the $50,000 celebrity, guru keynoter is over because post-COVID, we're in a recession, potentially depression, values change, where we spend our money on changes. So if you were a thought leader, a keynoter that has been involuntarily disrupted, what would you be thinking about doing?
Well, I am one. I've been giving speeches for a long time, and I do now about 30 a year. Not as many as I used to do, but because I just don't want to run that hard. Do what I did. Right behind me is a TV studio, basically, that I built over the last 2 weeks. And that's to prepare for virtual speaking, which I have about 4 booked already. And the ones I've seen so far are awful.
Horrible.
So I've tried to do it very differently. My brother is also a keynote speaker and a National Geographic photographer. He lives in Hawaii. So we've been on Zoom every day, sort of brainstorming how to do this. And I think that virtual speaking needs to be like television. So when you say
like television, do you mean production value and all that?
I've always I'll do 300 slides in an hour, and they're all graphics.
Okay.
And I do that because it keeps people off their phone. It's FOMO. They fear of missing out. They can't look down. Okay. But when I do it virtually, I've got graphics and video and polling, so they interact, and interviews and compelling content combined in a new way. And it's going to evolve for sure. and I'm not the little box in the corner. I've got a video switcher, so I'm on screen and my slides are on screen and things are moving around. And the idea is to, keep them off their email.
So
And,
I want to touch on that for a minute, Terry. So there's some production value there that's different than what people. So most great keynoters have thought through almost every moment of their keynote, the introduction, the music, the tone they're setting, the lighting they prefer, the slides, they've thought this through, and now bang, they're in this virtual world and they go, oh, geez, I guess I just hit record on Zoom or, whatever. But I like the way that you're thinking about it from a user's perspective. I got to keep hitting them with stuff and polling and this, that, and the other thing, because we're all competing with a cell phone.
I think it's quite different, and we're going to learn. Am I going to have a crawl going below me like CNN?
But that's a great question.
Maybe,
right? Yeah,
maybe that's where the questions are showing up. It's just, it's different. Even when I'm in a hall, because of the way I speak, if they're going to show Image Mag with, a picture of me and cut back and forth to the slides, I say, don't show me. Just so the slides. I go too fast, you'll never figure out when
too much herky-jerky. Yeah.
So just leave me alone, and I'll be the voice of God, and you'll see these images. And I never send my slides to a meeting planner because they are determined that I couldn't finish because they've had the guy who has 4 slides with 400 dot points. Right. We all know that guy.
Yeah.
So I don't do that.
Okay.
And I get raves and raves. I give away my slides. I have an app so that people get the slides. I've already taken the notes. They can review me live. They can participate in a poll, and hopefully they can buy a book. And that way, if they really are looking at their phone, then I'm not disappointed. I think they might be looking at my app and not playing Angry Birds, right? So
right. So let me ask you this, Terry. So I love you went at it from a little bit of a different thought that I had, but I love it that there's a production value piece. There's a attention. You got to keep their attention and hook. Even when you watch the way television is today, situation comedies, the average shot is moving at 5 times the pace that it did, 8 times.
Oh, yeah.
Or 20 times the pace is All in the Family. Actually, go back to the 70s and you'd watch the same scene for 4 minutes, which is like an eternity today versus this herky-jerky style we've all gotten used to. I want to flip it a little bit, and I'm seeing lots of things. Some of them are really concerning relative to value and delivery. Right. So there's one school of thought that says if I was a speaker that was charging X, whatever X was, 20, 25K, whatever, now I'm doing it virtually. Oh, geez, my book of business went away. I'm desperate. I'll do it for anything. There's another school of thought that says, well, you know what? It's reasonable to discount your old fees 20, 25% because you don't have to do the travel. So that the quote 1 hour keynote, which didn't include 2 days of travel back to back, that's sort of reasonable. What are your feelings on protecting the value, discounting, making sure your brand?
I think it's too bad. When people discount a virtual product, it's very hard to maintain price integrity. I have a friend who's a high-level speaker who claims he's not discounting at all. We'll see. I want to sort of backstop that to see if that's true. He's getting some of it. What you're paying for is the content.
Yeah.
And frankly, the content isn't any different. And so I don't have to travel 2 days. Okay, big deal. You're paying for my trip anyway. And usually it's, I'm in and out and going to do another one. So, 20% fine. But a lot of people are discounting 50 and 60%. And I think that's
not good.
I don't think, it's unfortunate in the business. Now, whoever said a 1 hour speech is worth $50,000. I mean, that it is an unusual price anyway.
Yeah.
So, it's sort of like, why do I pay a realtor so much? When they don't do very much anymore. So I think we'll have that problem with price. I don't think the keynote is going to go away. I think people even more need to be motivated, and they need to get together. And people, as this goes on longer, and Gartner just released numbers that 75% of major companies have said, we're not sending everybody back to the office. Even if we have a vaccine, we're not doing it. We don't want to do it. We don't need to do it. But therefore, how do you motivate them? The woman who came after me at Travelocity went on to become the CMO at IBM and had a lot to do with bringing remote workers back into IBM. So we don't want
from a cultural standpoint.
Because they had to change the culture.
Yeah.
And, that was the same thing that Melissa did at Yahoo, and, widely panned, but I think the right idea. And it doesn't mean you can't have work from home, but it's hard to change culture when people are remote. So I think
But if you look now and take that variable out of the equation, where the office might not even be an option for many anymore, right? You can't say, well, I guess we don't have culture anymore. You just have to figure out
how to do it.
Okay, well, yeah,
Which means that doing what we're doing here on a Zoom with high quality production and good content becomes even more important.
yep.
Much more important. So I don't think the keynote goes away. I do think that perhaps the emotional keynote goes away.
But when you say emotional, is that a
well,
polite
let
way
me
of
tell you
saying
what I mean.
the rah-rah stuff?
Yeah, so it's the guy who climbed Everest on his thumbs,
Yeah,
right?
right.
You have wonderful stories. They're highly emotive, but they really don't move the needle for business.
Right,
And
right.
or the sports coach who talks the
Yep.
night before.
Yeah,
It's great. It's an easy thing to do in a meeting, but corporations, and I ran big corporations, want to look at return on meeting. What am I getting out of this thing? And am I really changing people's minds?
If you're enjoying this episode of Leveraging Thought Leadership, please make sure to subscribe. If you'd like to help spread the word about our podcast, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. We're available on Apple Podcast and on all major listening apps, as well as at thoughtleadershipleverage.com/podcasts. We go next is the return. So let's forget COVID for a moment, because that will be behind us at some point, 6 months, a year, God knows when. But this is a moment in time. What I don't see people putting out front enough, in my opinion, right now is, okay, and I'm not discounting or diminishing the seriousness or the gravity of COVID. It's a horrible, crazy, awful thing. The business world has totally changed in the last 60 days, right? So if we think about where were we in January, February, the war for talent, right? Why do we have a war for talent? We're at full employment. People are making a ton of money. Stocks are going through the roof, et cetera. We just lost 35 million Americans in the workforce here. So how does and I've seen, not to the level that we'll see now, but we're clearly in a recession, and the D word is floating out there, right? And which is a very, very real possibility of the next couple of years being ugly. What does that mean for a keynoter? Because if I just fired 40, if I'm Hilton Hotels, I don't think I'm having my top sales guys conference in Hawaii this year.
No, but you will. Even in 2008,
yep.
I had a bad year, but I didn't have a disastrous year. My business was down maybe 30%.
Sure.
Because the first thing you do, when you come back, I mean, the guys who die, okay, are going to die, but the guys who are going to live say, I have to motivate my sales team. Mm-hmm. I have to change my strategy. I'm getting people together. I had one speech that was March 3rd in New York, and I was already there, and I got a text, and they said we canceled the meeting for tomorrow morning because of COVID. So everybody, it was kind of crazy because I think everybody was already there, but they didn't put them all in a room, which I get. So I thought, well, that one's just off the books. No, I'm doing it virtually because this is a very large company, over 100 years old. They've got a strategy they're going forward with. Not all it's an industry that's going to do okay, and they want to motivate their folks, and they want to talk about digital disruption, which is one of the things I talk about.
Okay, but your topic is a highly relevant topic today, right? So, and what I'm saying is if I'm a thought leader today, number one, forget the mountain climber with his thumb, and we've all seen sort of those guys or whatever. Okay.
Yep, they're gone.
That's the froth on the cappuccino. That's gone now, right?
Yep.
So how do you make your content relevant in this business environment? So digital disruption, this is actually might even be a demand gen for you, this crazy.
Yeah, it well could be because a survey of European execs shows that digital disruption will actually accelerate because of COVID, and I think it will. We're in the biggest digital experiment of our lives.
Yeah.
E-commerce is up 50%. Yep. Remote work isn't going away. Robots, IoT, all that stuff is off the charts, right? Yep. So I'm in the right place at the right time. But let's say I was just speaking about innovation. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? You're going to need to be pretty innovative to deal with this new market. If you're a cruise line, you better be super innovative. If you're an airline, how do you build trust? If you're a hotel, how do you build trust? If you're a restaurant, how do you get contactless restaurants? All that's going to take innovation. If I'm a sales team, this is not new. I think it was 3 years ago, I was with the guys from Arrow Electronics, huge electronics company.
Yeah.
And I'm in the van, I'm going to the cocktail party before the speech. I said, what's your biggest problem? They said, we can't call on purchasing managers anymore because they're working at home in their pajamas. You have to deal with them virtually. Well, guess what? All sales calls are going to be virtual now.
Right.
The vast majority. So if you're in sales, you're going to need to be retrained and be motivated. Right.
So, but even push that once further. So a big piece, again, of the speaking world is the association side of the house, right? So what is an association? They're typically a nonprofit. Their charter typically reads something like to serve, promote, and educate our members, right? And why do people go to Scottsdale every February? Well, they go for two reasons, maybe three. One is if they want to, wine and dine on the company dollar for Scottsdale, but that's very few. Most of us would rather spend a night in our own bed and not have to do that. They go for content and they go for community. So we've been talking about deploying content in a different way than we're all in, the Aloha ballroom or whatever. How do you do that community piece? Because people might not have articulated it, but one of the reasons they show up in Scottsdale every February is belly.
No, I think community is going to be much harder. Now, it's interesting. So a good friend of mine started a travel consortium called Virtuoso, and they take all these high-end travel agents and all the general managers of all the best hotels in the world and the best tour companies. They all go to Vegas, and they have 5-minute speed dating for 3 days.
Okay.
So the manager pitches for 5 minutes to my daughter, come to my hotel in Macedonia, right?
Okay.
Could you do that in Zoom rooms? Probably could. Could you have that kind of connection? That kind of thing you could do. The cocktail party meeting thing is going to be much harder. So it's the
randomness of it, of you and I are just on the buffet line.
Right. That isn't going to happen the same way. So it's going to have to be orchestrated. The dating game, okay, I want to go in this breakout. And I've been in a couple already where, I ran a board meeting with 40 people and then we broke into 6 breakouts.
Yep. They're actually pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. It worked. You can record them. You can get transcripts of them. And Zoom has this wonderful tool so you can see if people are off playing a video game instead of being in Zoom. You kind of go, what are they doing? So it's going to be different. And I think trade associations already have said, well, we kind of stopped the magazine and now we're trying to do an e-zine or, remember those? And they're trying different things. But the meeting, of course, also is a huge revenue driver for them.
Yeah, totally.
So that's going to be, how do we make money, and show value. Now, the other big part of what trade associations do is lobbying.
Sure.
That's going to be interesting. How do I lobby when there is no lobby?
Right. Well, think about think about the origin of that word, right? Where that doesn't.
Right. Ulysses S. Grant and the Willard Hotel. That's where it came from.
Yeah. Right.
Have a scotch with or a bourbon with Grant.
Yeah.
So that's going to change. So, I think that speakers have to say, what was the value I gave?
But stop there for a moment, because I would argue, and I don't want to name names, why does someone bring in a specific speaker? And in my opinion, there's an entertainment piece. Is that a marquee name that will get, whoa, that's why I'm going, I get to see Jay-Z or whatever, right?
Right.
There's entertainment, there's engagement. They're good at what they do. Their craft is good, and then it's dropping a couple of bullet points onto people. So over the cocktail party, they go, oh yeah, that was kind of interesting. That was kind of interesting. But they weren't never held to the standard of changing people's way of thinking, of having a business impact. Nobody ever really thought like, oh, okay, so if I put 400 people in a room with someone like Terry, who's a great disruptor and innovator, they'd actually do anything with that.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, one of the things that I pitch is return on meeting.
Okay.
And I pitch that around myself to say, okay, I'm not only giving them these points, watch my video, I review all those points at the end. Then I'm willing to go out into the lobby and talk to anybody for an hour. Mm-hmm. I've got a companion book. I've got notes that they can have. So, let's talk about it and see if you get the return. And by the way, afterwards, anybody who wants my slides has to review me. Mm-hmm. And I then share all those reviews with the meeting planner. Because what does the meeting planner want to do? They want to show those reviews to the boss. So these people really got it.
Okay.
They really got it. So
that's different than most, though. What I'm saying is the keynoter that met the standards that the industry had. I'm entertaining, I'm engaging, I'm fun. People will clap, people will give me the thumbs up. If there's no there, if there's no gravitas, I think they're at risk, quite frankly.
I think they are at risk because people are going to say 60% of the people on the Zoom were playing Angry Birds.
Yeah,
They weren't listening.
Right.
Or they were doing their email or something else, or, and I saw their daughter come in and they left, or whatever. So I think it's going to be much harder. And, the people who don't customize, I always customize.
Yeah.
Every single time.
I call them the drive-by speakers, right? Hello, Illinois. You're in Cleveland.
Yeah. That's I never say, thanks for welcoming me to Illinois, because I'm always in Iowa when I say that. So I'm careful because I don't remember. But still, I think the bar for quality of content, return on meeting is going to be quite high.
Got it. Well, this has been, I love that term, return on meeting. And I hope that we see more and more of that. And I think that's actually a good challenge to folks to say, okay, if you had to articulate your value prop to the meeting planner or whoever that's hiring you, what's your return on meeting? And if you can't answer that today, you're in deep doo-doo.
Yeah. I think you're right. I don't think it's going away. I do think large meetings are going to take a while to come back. That's post-vaccine. And we don't really know when that's coming, but it doesn't mean the business is gone. People still need to be motivated. I think when, it calms down a little bit, business starts reopening, people are going to say, hey, I need to do the same things I was doing before for my employees. Maybe I need it more. Well, who can help me with that?
Yeah. And one thing that you said that I'm thinking about is, obviously as the workplace changes, and if it doesn't look like it used to, maybe meetings become more important, because that's really the only time, or one of the fewer times. It's not like I'm sitting next to you you and I are always having lunch on Wednesdays at the steakhouse. Even though we work with the same company in the same city, maybe the only time we see each other is the twice a year annual offsite. It becomes that much more important.
People are saying, well, how do I know my employees are doing anything? I said, how'd you know before? Did you go and look at them? You measure them on output. For example, I have a woman who's worked for me for 15 years, and this is the first time I asked her for a weekly report.
Right.
And she was kind of upset about that. But I'm saying, look, there's no business. So what do you, you're my employee, I'm still paying you. What are you doing?
Right.
And if she's out there knocking on doors, that's fine. So we started this because I need to know what she's up to.
Well, that's not about trust. That's about, okay, let's document the activities so we can talk about them and say, is this working? Is it not working? Right. Should we spend more time here, less time? Let's have an intelligent conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, because before the outcome was I got a lot of bookings. Well, right now I'm not.
So it didn't matter.
Getting a lot of bookings. So, okay, how are we doing with the books? What else can we do? How are you promoting? What have you changed?
Yeah.
And do I agree? Right? Because you're my employee. So there's a measurements piece, but there's also getting together and just how you do it.
And questioning the strategy and the activities underneath that, and willing to try new things. So anyway.
Like this virtual studio thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to do one and it's going to fail, and then I'm going to learn again. My biggest thing in my book, Disruption Off, is about failing. Right? Yeah. And learning from failure. And testing. 20% of what you see on Kayak every day is a test.
Yep.
We are constantly failing, but continuously learning.
Exactly. So, and the product is better every day.
Look, I talk about risk and failure and making faster decisions. And all of that has to be done right now. So Disruption Off, take a read if you haven't. It's on Amazon.
Cool. Thank you so much, Terry. This has been fantastic, and big fan of Kayak for a number of years. So thank you for bringing that into the world. And I think a lot of good stuff today, and a lot of things for folks to be thinking about, and really having the courage to internalize and ask yourself the tough questions. So thanks so much.
Thanks for having me on.
To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.